a relatively wet hillside where the flow just slowly moved from north to south towards Payne Road. And when the site was originally developed, the goal was to capture that flow on the northern hillside and just bring it around the site. So that's what you see. Everything's been captured and diverted to the west to get it around the development area.
So when you looked at the memo, where have we lost the wetland? Obviously, the wetland has shrunk by the numbers that were outlined earlier. Where has the wetland and the map amendment, where have we lost wetland? Can you point that out in this?
Yeah, so the wetlands actually, the map that you guys have on file is pretty similar. So I'm guessing it's from an older delineation of the site. It's very similar, but you can see on this this map in front of you here, the white dashed line is the town map wetland soils, and the blue line is what I mapped. So what you see in the areas in white for the wetland 1 and watercourse 1, you can see that those historically were slightly larger. But if you go out in the field, for example, in wetland 1, you can see, for example, wetland 1 on the south side, you see a divergence between my line and the white dash line on that south side. If you go out in the field, that is like, there's an abrupt fill slope there. You can actually even see old knocked over silt fence. So there's a fill boundary there. So at some point those wetlands got confined and the water courses got, more developed, and those areas basically were shrunk down and at that point defined by fill berms. That area, the biggest divergence is that area that's sort of like an egg shape in the northwest corner. You can see that's separated from watercourse 2. There's sort of a long oblong shaped wetland there. That's an area of groundwater discharge, but again, it's been filled and graded. The flow's been cut off to that area by watercourse 2. That captures the flow from the hillside and takes it to the culvert. So that area is really just like a filled hillside at this point. But the wetland, in terms of just simply the wetland map amendment issue, the wetland boundaries are very similar to what's on site today.
Can I see these small white numbers? Is that a sample number? I can't read it on the slide, but I see very small numbers along the blue line. Is that basically no, higher up?
Yeah, those are the wetland flag numbers.
So was that where you took the sample, where you took the boring?
Those are wetland flag numbers. That would be an area, a spot where I actually hung the flag. You're hanging flags at the vertices of the wetlands, and then the lines connect between the vertices. So those are the flag numbers.
Mm-hmm. But how many samples did you take? Is that around that perimeter there? How you just basically follow the topography of the land? You take one, if it stays level, you just mirror that around. You don't take all those. How does that work?
Yeah, the typical is it depends on the type of wetland, and the topography is the real defining factor. But basically, what you're doing is, as a soil scientist, you sort of learn where the transition zone is. You recognize where the groundwater discharges, and the vegetation is the big cue. So when we get to the point that we realize is the approximate wetland boundary, we dig one hole on the wet side, one hole on the upland side, and then you basically continue to do that until those two holes are as close as you can get them, and then you hang the flag between those two holes. You define the uppermost wetland hole, the lowermost upland hole, and then drop your flag between those. And you usually do that every 20 or 30 feet. If it's a channelized feature, it might stretch out a little bit more. If it's got a sinuous shape to it, you might confine that to every 10 feet. So it depends on the site. But in terms of how we dig it, yeah, we're using a Eigel Camp soil auger. It's you twist it by hand. It takes out a 2-inch by 8-inch core, and you're just examining the soil profile down to 2 feet.
So did the soil, I'm in the soil scientist report, you never Scarborough, Wilbraham, Acquiesce, all these types of soils. Was it pretty consistent, or was the soil one type in one area, another type in another? Is that significant?
So for all of the disturbed wetland areas, those are what we call aquents, and that's just sort of that's the catch-all for disturbed wetland soils. In other words, they don't have a naturally formed soil profile. So we know they're wet based on the redoxomorphic features, what we call modeling, but they don't have a naturally derived soil profile because they've been worked over by machinery, historically disturbed wetlands that are still wet. So those are aquants. And pretty much everything on the north side qualifies as an aquant. And just to clarify, the two watercourse areas, the areas that we marked out on the map as watercourse 1 and watercourse 2, those meet your technical definition and also the state's technical definition of an intermittent watercourse. They do not have wetland soils. But, as you're probably aware, there's a separate definition and regulatory guidance for intermittent watercourses. They don't have wetland soils. They don't have what we call an aquic moisture regime. They don't have high groundwater, but they convey flow, and so they're regulated by the state and by your local commission. It's just a different feature. They don't carry the same function as a wetland. Watercourses, basically their only function is to convey flow. So the watercourse 1 and watercourse 2 are just simply watercourses. They don't have wetland soils. In terms of the other soil types, the Wilbraham and Scarborough, those are attributed to wetland 2. That's the larger wetland. That's got more of the natural wetland features. That's got less disturbance. That's sort of your true high functioning wetland on the site, is that wetland 2.
So you think, are these full most of the year, or do they dry up mostly in summertime? Will you have any evidence of any high water mark?
Yeah, yes, the wetland flagging is above. So for the wetlands, yes, they're seasonal. The hydrology is seasonally saturated, so they do dry up. This time of year, when I was out, a week or two ago, there was, the surface was saturated. You could see little pockets of standing water. There was flow in the streams. But yes, these are all what we call hillside groundwater slope wetlands. So they are saturated in the spring, and in the summer they're dry. The water courses, both of the water courses when I was out, just in the past couple of weeks, neither of them had any flow in them. Both of those water courses on the north side of the site were designed in a way to, carry like flow during higher volume events. They don't have what we call base flow. The wetland 2 water course has base flow because that's got a larger watershed.
Now, relative to where the wetland flags is, when we're looking at the photos here, it looks like it's a depression. It comes down. There's a slope in the channel. It's a channel, basically. Relative to the peak of the channel, where is that wetland flag? As soon as you exit the channel, you're ready, relative to the slope. When you get to the top of the slope, I'm out of the wetland. You didn't see wetland there. How close to that area do you see the water there?
Yeah.
The soil?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. I don't think I've ever been asked, but so for the channelized water courses, whether they're intermittent or perennial, at that point the requirement is that you demarcate what we call the ordinary high water mark. So at that point you don't have wetland soils to go by, so you're looking for signs of an ordinary high water mark, which is basically you're hanging the flag on the limit of peak flow. It's relatively easy to see. It's water staining. It's what we call rack, which is basically waterborne deposits. So, if you look at a stream or a river, you can see where the water is, but you can also notice on the banks where there's sticks that were waterborne or things that you could clearly see got carried by water and deposited up the bank. When that's how you flag any kind of water course. You hang the flags above any sign of an ordinary high water mark. And so there's various criteria, but those are the big ones: water staining, or a rack line, or any kind of scour line.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to open up now to other commissioners for their questions. Thank you, sir. Commissioner Bashad, you're on mute.
Just an observation. So it looks pretty logical that since it's a channelized wetland or watercourse, that he's defining it, or he's narrowing it down to the size of the channel. And seems pretty practical and logical to me. In the lower portion, in the larger wetland there, the field delineated seems pretty close to where the existing was anyway. Is there a significant change I'm missing here? That'd be a question for the soil soil scientist, I guess.
Yeah. Again, it's Eric Davison. No, to me, the two wetland boundaries are similar to the point that they seem logically the same to me. When you have a disturbed site, you're going to have some variation. I think there's probably been some changes to the site since this delineation was done. Not anything major, but some of these areas were already disturbed and marginal. So any little change to the grading or just the land use practice on the site could alter some of these areas. So these look substantially the same to me, and logically the same for a disturbed site.
Besides maybe the one that's up in the upper quadrant there that is being eliminated completely because it doesn't exist anymore. It's in a pipe underground.
Correct. There's a pipe there. I mean, I recognize that area because we spent a bit of time surveying that area. There's a slope cut there because there's a natural slope into that site. And when I flagged the site, Eversource was still operating some kind of training facility. And in the back there, they had their bucket trucks, and so I think they were doing like their arborist training back there. They had stumps, and they were doing chainsaw training and things back there. So there's a cut slope right at that point. That's the limit of a cut slope, and then the hill rises up. And that whole area was like gravel pads interspersed with mowed areas. So there's a cut slope there. So in the spring, you get what we call exfiltration of groundwater out of the slope. So it's just such a steep slope that in the spring, if anybody has a steep property like I do, in the spring, in the peak high groundwater, you see a little water weeping out. That's what you have in that little spot. And then it dries up in the summer, but the soils they don't meet the criteria, but you do see some water weeping out there in the spring.
We're going to eliminate that completely. You're suggesting
Correct.
It's not worthy of being on the map.
Correct.
That's it for me. Thank you.
Commissioner Lavariere.
Yes, thank you. I believe that Commissioner Bashan just addressed somewhat of what I was saying. I'm reading Mr. Hinckley's memorandum dated April 15, insofar as that the site contains 3.48 acres of wetlands, and that this amendment would result in a reduction to 2.57 acres of wetland. And I'm sorry, perhaps you could, if you would please, could you just point out, either point out or point out again if I missed it, the area that would be reduced?
So if you look at what's being circled there with the cursor, that's the area that would be reduced there. And then to the east, you can see the blue line and the white line. The blue line is interior to the white line. So there's your reduction. Going over to the west, the southwest corner, the lines are basically the same, except for that northwest corner where is actually an increase in the wetland boundary. My wetland line is larger or above of that white line. So there's an increase to wetland 2 and a decrease to watercourse 2 and wetland 1. That makes sense.
Oh, yes, sort of. There's a lot of material. So now the area just southwest of the area you circled, is that the only area that you're saying is remaining as undisturbed wetland?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Your paperwork says that there's a small area of undisturbed wetland. That if I'm reading this correctly.
I see. Oh, yeah. So what I was, that doesn't really weigh into the wetland boundary amendment, which I think you were
right. That's the other side, right?
Yeah, but what I was saying is that southwest corner wetland, which I'm calling wetland 2, that's the only wetland area I found on the site that was native, natural, undisturbed. Not all of it, but some of it. And the point was that just making the point that most of the wetlands on the site have been manipulated or altered.
Commissioners, if I just may point out, just for clarification again, the white dash line he's showing on there, that's the existing town mapping, and the blue lines are what he flagged in the field. So you can see where it, increases in some places and decreases in others.
Mr. Hinckley, do you know the source of the white line?
That's from the town mapping. I don't remember. I don't know. I'd have to look back in the record and see if they've ever mapped it on this site or if this was from the original aerial photography.
Yeah, that would make some sense if it was from an aerial interpretation. It sort of has that look to it.
Okay, anyone else from the commission? Questions from the commission? I do not see anyone's hand up. I'm scrolling through the list. All right. There's no further questions on the map amendment. I believe we have to hold a motion to hold a public hearing for the map amendment for application 2021-01, 2021-09-MA. And the proposed is to do this on May the 4th, 2021. That is one of our special dates.
Right, if Mr. Boutot wants to put that motion up, that suggested draft motion, you can look at it. And
again, this is automatic. Map amendments get public hearings, correct, Mr. Hinckley? That's just part
correct,
of the
pursuant
regs.
to section 15.7 of
Yep.
your regulations. There, that should be the motion.
So,
Richard
Mr.
here.
Secretary, Commissioner Larrier.
Yeah, I mean, May 4th seems awfully soon. Today's April 20th. I mean, for a public hearing, I'm not sure if,
All our publishing deadlines will be met.
fair enough, sir. Okay. Then I have a motion pursuant to application 2021-09MA to hold a public hearing for the map amendment application and schedule said public hearing for May 4th, 2021.
So moved. May I have a second from the commission?
Commissioner Wagner seconds it.
Second by Commissioner Magner. Final discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Let's go through the roll call. We'll go through the roll call, Ms. Gibbons.
I had a question, Mr.
Commissioner
Chair.
Casacan, yeah.
Commissioner Santa, go ahead.
I just have a question. Why are we holding a special meeting for this? Why is there a rush on this? Why couldn't this be
Yeah.
at our next scheduled meeting? I'm just curious.
We have the special meeting dates already reserved.
Yeah,
Going
Realize.
forward, there's going to be a lot of other applications. I'm just trying to compartmentalize some of this stuff so we can take it piece by piece. The public hearings, you can have them next month or at the 4th.
no,
and
I
then you'll
just,
be able to vote at the following regular scheduled meeting.
in my years on the commission, normally it's just been, we, move it to next month's regular meeting. So I didn't know if there was some kind of time deadline or constraint or some other consideration where we had to move it to a special, meeting night. So just more curiosity than opposition. It's unusual for us. It's not normal procedure. That's why I was just kind of curious if there was any kind of extenuating circumstances that was causing us to go to a May 4th meeting.
If I can point out, commissioners, we use special meeting dates for our public hearings for Dakota property, for Toll Brothers. A lot of the larger sites, this has typically been done because sometimes, you might continue the public hearing at times.
Very good. Thanks, Mr. Hinckley.
Commissioner Larrier.
Yes, thank you. I do realize that it is my motion too, but I you know, again, to echo Commissioner Castasanta's statement, I'm wondering if it would be something that may be better suited to be at the next meeting. I'm ask the rest of the commissioners to ask themselves if that's appropriate as well. Thank
Well,
you.
we have a motion on the floor. Ms. Gibbons, please call the roll.
Commissioner Ancona,
Aye.
Commissioner Bashan,
Yes.
Commissioner Casasanta,
Aye.
Commissioner Leverrier,
No.
Commissioner Paskowitz,
Aye.
Chairman Sadil,
Aye.
Commissioner Wagner,
Aye.
6-1.
Okay. All right. Moving on, I guess,
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the
you're
commission.
welcome.
And next, we have Dennis Goderre, who is the project manager from BL Companies, who will provide you with an overview of the second application, which, as we've already said and you're aware, is an application for approval of regulated activities associated with a proposed site development, mixed-use site development of the subject property. So with your permission, Mr. Chairman, I'll turn it over to Dennis.
Please do.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Attorney Smith. Good evening. For the record, my name is Dennis Goderre. I'm a Senior Project Manager with BL Companies, and I am sharing my screen. I hope everybody can see it. And I'd like to just briefly provide, for context, just a history of the site. As you probably are aware, and as was noted before, there has been historic disturbance on the property, and it's been used by Eversource for quite some time. This image here, taken from Google Earth, shows most recently, just prior to its demolition of the building or buildings, what it looked like with the amount of disturbance on the roughly 25-acre site, where over 50% of it had been disturbed with at least impervious coverage. And there's a little vignettes of the past histories of the property as well has been provided. Again, in its state right now, even after demolition of the buildings, and there is still some utility infrastructure that is in place, as Mr. Davison was referring to, some pipe networks that convey the flow of these wetlands to the lower wetland area number 2. I do also want to call your attention that there's a pipe outlet that still exists and that discharges here at this point, and it runs roughly up to the north and then over to the east and collects some of the drainage from this portion of the site as well. And then there's another existing pipe location over here. I want to just call that to your attention. So the property has historically been and is substantially disturbed. My client from Grossman and Criterion, the partnership, is proposing a mixed-use development of residential and commercial uses. On the right-hand side is the Berlin Turnpike. Just off the map is Payne Road. On the eastern half of the site is a retail commercial development where there would be general retail shops, bank, perhaps some restaurant space, and a proposed supermarket. On the western half are residential buildings, 4-story, 3 buildings that are 4 stories with 269 residential units. And then you can see the parking requirements in order to meet the parking requirements of the town and the landscaping requirements. And the circulation patterns are also shown here as well. There is a stormwater management area located in the disturbed area of one of the training grounds, and then recreation components that are proposed as being required as amenities and as part of the zoning requirements of the town. I'd like to just highlight the regulated activities that we are that are part of the application that we're requesting approval for, and there was a sheet included in our application that this so it might look familiar to you if you've had an opportunity to take a look at it. It's color coded to show the upland activities. So the green is the softscape landscape disturbed areas where there's grading, one area and other landscaping. The buildings that are shown in the beige locations, pavement and parking, and then some different color tones associated with where there are wetland filling associated with the project. The majority of that is occurring on these two wetlands, which are the intermittent water courses that Mr. Davison was referring to and that had been previously disturbed and are channelized. And then there are some minor areas of filling along here to accommodate the 28-foot wide access drive going out to Payne Road.
Mr.
Yes,
Goderre. Yes, if I may interrupt for a question there,
Yep.
if I may. Now, I was a little confused by your color coding on the bottom, your summary key. You see a lighter tannish buildings within wetland and then buildings within buffer area. I was a little confused. That's my first question. My second question is relative to that water course 1. Are we going to encroach into that water course? We're going to leave the wetland alone, but the water course itself, where that we described where that water is moving westerly, is that area going to be disturbed, or is that going to change? Or what's the? I'm looking. Those questions were in front of my mind, and
Yeah,
you touched upon those areas.
Yeah, admittedly, the color coding could be a little bit on the confusing side. So this lighter color down here, building within wetland, there's a garage for vehicular parking for cars for tenants. There's a portion of the building that's proposed to be located, at this section of the wetland. That's the only building that would be located with where there is currently a wetland. This
So,
area.
So you Mr. Davies said that there's water flowing southerly. There was that pond on the other property that flows onto this property and then to the west. How is that affected? Is that going to be disturbed? Is it going to go underground or?
Yeah, the grading plan isn't shown here, but this is a currently slopes up, so it's lower here and then higher up top. And this would be in a cut slope, and then we have retaining walls through here. So we have drainage designs that would be picking up the flow for this system, as well as this riprap system on that, existing riprap system. All of that flow would continue along and still discharge at the same location here, so it would not impact the hydrology of the wetland. So that is still, we are matching the flows of the existing drainage that goes into wetland area number 2.
So my question is, those lines, water course 1, water course 2, I see you paved over, so that's going to go underground versus today it's above ground in a channel.
Yes,
there's covered over with piping and culverts.
That is correct. A pipe would start roughly in this area here and then continue along. It comes around and then discharge it back over into this point here.
Okay, thank you. Please continue.
And then there's the disturbance within the upland area. So the wetland impacts is 0.1 acres or 0.11 acres of direct wetland impacts that are shown, that are proposed. Activities within the upland regulated area is 5.8 acres. And then we just did a comparison as to what is already existing as being disturbed within those areas. So it's 5 acres within the regulated area. So there is a slight increase in activity in the regulated areas between wetlands as well as the upland review areas as well.
So my question is, okay, what is the management? Right now, we have a lot of exposed soil percolating to the ground. Oh, I'm talking away from the water courses. I'm talking surface flow on the actual property itself. So what's the water management plan at a high level? Is that going to be like from the buildings and such? How is the wetlands going to be impacted by that?
So we have a because of the nature of the soils, infiltration is for the most part not feasible for, we'll say, the eastern half. So this would be a new property line. This property will be subdivided, so the eastern portion would be managed separately from the western portion. So starting with the eastern portion, there would be an underground detention area located approximately in this location. So all of the flows here will come to this underground system and then be piped and then discharged here, which is what is happening currently today. The western portion, where the residential development is a combination of below grade as well as surface water management. So there is a underground system approximately in this location that the flows are coming to. And then there's a detention area located here, surrounded by a walkway that would be a recreational walkway. So there is a, from a water treatment standpoint, we are using mechanical means for Technic units, hydrodynamic separators, and before they discharge into the wetlands with means such as hoods at the outlet points. There is LID rain gardens in some of the islands in these locations that are being collected through under drains and then discharging in this location as well. We are matching, we're slightly lower in flows from pre and post. So we're not increasing the hydrology. There's a very slight decrease, but we don't believe that there would be a negative impact on the wetlands on that standpoint. And there is some treatment of stormwater quality that is being attained and achieved through the LID as well as the Technic units, especially when you compare it to the current drainage system that's in place, as well as what's happened here historically.
How much maintenance would be required? It sounds quite a complicated system that you've got put in place here. What type of maintenance plan would that require? I mean, with clogging, silt and whatnot gets stuck in there.
Yeah, no, there would be a maintenance and operations plan in place that would be part of this. There would be, regular sweeping of parking areas to ensure that there's minimum of any type of debris. The sumps and the deep sumps of the catch basins would need to be cleaned out on a regular basis, which is a standard practice, as well as the underground detention areas and monitoring of the vortectic units. The stormwater management area would need to be cleaned out on a periodic basis if there's any siltation that does in fact enter that, which is also another means of collecting and helping with stormwater runoff quality. And there will be some infiltration there because that is in a will be in a filled system. So it'll be slightly above the existing grade. So there'll be some infiltration, but not a substantial amount.
So, Mr. Hinckley, would that be a condition if we move forward with this application? Would there be a maintenance plan as a condition of acceptance of this permit?
If one was not provided, you could make it a condition. If they choose to provide one in a subsequent submittal that you can review and look at, and you could just give them the standard conditions, and that maintenance plan would be a part of the set. So that's something that they could do going forward, certainly, or you can condition it.
Mr. Smith, do you care to comment on that?
No, Mr. Chairman, we certainly will. We can incorporate that into the application.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Goderre, please continue. Sorry to interrupt that again.
Oh, that does basically conclude. I just wanted to point out, just for context as to the existing development footprint shown here in the purple, and then the previously existing building. And there is some expansion in some areas of where we are, increasing some of the disturbance in the upland area, some areas that we're pulling back as well. But that would conclude this presentation for the evening. And as part of due process. We're requesting the commission's determination if this is you believe this is a significant impact and would require, or in the best interest of the public and would require a public hearing.
Okay, before we go there, Mr. Goderre, I do have one more question. Relative to that southwesterly flow by, as you go to Payne Road, is the capacity going to have to be expanded? There's a lot of stuff now is discharging in that by underneath there, that wetland number 2, and it's all going to come out. I don't know if that's the name of that road there. Yeah, that thing going up. Yeah, that street going up, you know, that almost vertical line there, yeah, right. Does that street have a name, or that's going to be an access point, right? I mean, the residents can go down that road to their apartment, right? Is that going to need to be widened, or how is that? That's a lot of water now just being sort of channeled down. Is that going to need to be widened to handle the surface flow?
Yeah, there's a 24-foot wide drive that exists currently, and that also has its own conveyance system for stormwater. By the requirements of the zoning regulations, driveways are required to be 28 feet. So there is a 4-foot wide increase in that area. So we would be utilizing, or we would require a collection system. But again, we wouldn't be increasing the overall flows.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, too. I believe, if I recall, that's a very large pipe also that flows from south from that site underneath Payne Road and eventually comes out behind Stu Leonard's and gets into Webster Brook. It may be as large as a 56-inch, if I recall.
All right, I'm going to throw it over to some of the commissioners who've been listening to the presentation. I don't see anybody with their hand up. Commissioner
Bashan.
Observation again. So the existing water courses on the north edge, they're going to be eliminated completely. They're just shown there that's where they previously existed, but they're not going to exist anymore. There's going to be, the water's going to be managed by stormwater management on the improved site. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
And then could you just clarify again where all of the stormwater exits the site? Does it exit it down that access road through this large pipe that Eric was just referring to?
Yes, it comes down through here. The well is discharges into a grass swale, and then it enters into a 54 or 56-inch pipe that goes underneath Payne Road.
So none of the water moves to the west here?
No, it all collects at this one point.
Okay. That's it for now.
Anyone else? Voice from the commissioners?
Commissioner Paskowitz here.
Go ahead, Commissioner Paskowitz.
I haven't been to this site, so I'm not really familiar with the layout, the topography, or the wetland areas. I'd like to know if there are any wetland areas that are actually holding water with vegetation that's wetland type on this site. It's going to be disturbed.
Eric?
I can spend, my understanding is just the drainage swales, the man-made ones are the ones that are going to get basically filled in and piped, and then, you know, their professional can speak to the rest.
Yeah, again, this is Eric Davis, and yeah, that's correct. And you know, we can quantify this, you know, as the process moves forward, but and give you more specifics on the exact impact areas. But yes, my understanding at present, we're just impacting the water courses and encroaching on some of the wetlands, but not filling them. That, I believe that's correct, Dennis, isn't it?
That is correct.
So I'm going to refer back to the question. Are there areas on this site that are holding water and have vegetation that is wetland type?
No, I mean, there are no permanently flooded areas. The water courses do not hold water. They just convey flow during storm events. They don't they're not holding water. Portions of watercourse 1 have wetland vegetation, but largely it's non-wetland, but there is some wetland dependent vegetation in watercourse 1, but there's no standing water there. There's a picture or two in my report. It's tough to see because it's dense growth, but you can see the channel doesn't hold any water.
So expanding on my question, there are no depressions that are holding water.
Oh,
During,
correct.
Okay.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Um,
It's carrying, those channels are just carrying surface flow associated with a storm event.
Great. Thanks for clarifying that.
No problem.
Right. Anyone else from the commission wishes to question the applicant? Commissioner Bashant.
Just to add to what Commissioner Paskowitz was referring to, the wetland in the northeast corner, it looks like it slopes away from the site.
This wetland here actually slopes into the site.
I'm looking at the topo lines. They must be interpreting them wrong because it looks like it would slope away. But I was going to ask, what is the quality of that wetland? Is it a viable wetland, or is it again just mostly stormwater movement?
Again, it's Eric Davison. Yeah, I think you're seeing the topo correctly. I think you're just reading it in reverse. In other words, it's flowing southwest onto the site as opposed to away. So it's flowing down the hill, and then it's intercepted by the riprap channel. So, I mean, the quality of the wetland is low for a couple of reasons. It's capturing and conveying drainage from the development areas to the north, but the biggest impact to the wetland is the fact that it doesn't have a natural continuation. There was a fill berm established, and the water was drained with a water course out of the wetland. So if you think about it, it's like a stormwater feature that you under drain. That the base of that water course that they dug into the bottom of the wetland is well below the wetland. So basically draws all the water out of the wetland and converts it to surface flow and takes it off site. So the wetland hydrology has been completely affected by that water course.
But just again, about those topo lines, I'm looking
Don,
at.
I think what you're doing is the numbers you're seeing are the wetland flag numbers, not the contour.
Oh,
lines.
okay.
Oh,
All right,
yeah, yeah.
Oh,
I saw exactly, yes.
That's a little
Yeah,
confusing.
Yeah.
there you go.
Okay, yeah, so there is no topo lines.
So it's
I mean,
not
there's
going
lines,
uphill.
there's lines, but there's no numbers, yeah.
Yeah, correct. Yes, sorry about that.
Thank you.
Okay, any other question from commissioners? I don't see anybody with their hand up. One final question that I had, Mr. Goderre. So relative, and Mr. Davison as well, relative to wetlands 1, particularly wetlands 2, is there a type of maintenance plan for litter and that kind of thing? Because right now, this is sort of like a private commercial lot, okay? Is there anything there? I mean, to get, with windswept litter goes through there. Is there any way to keep the quality of the wetland up to where it needs to be? Is there any thought to that or recommendation?
Well, this facility would be both the residential as well as the retail would be managed by qualified property management, real estate management companies. And it could certainly be reinforced in the management and operations plan alongside other stormwater components from, cleaning up the litter and debris. And, that could also be in some of the open space areas and undisturbed areas. That could also be noted and be part of sort of the requirements on a periodic basis. We can certainly build that in.
And maybe it's, Chairman, maybe it's something they could add to their maintenance plan.
Just for the record, Chris Smith, we can certainly include that, as Mr. Hinckley indicates, Mr. Chairman, and you've requested already as supplemental information. We'll get that into the commission. We'll incorporate that component as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. As last call and comments from the commission before we move to the possibility, lack, or yes or no on the public hearing. What is the feeling from the rest of the commissioners as far as, whoops, hold on, lost you there. With the need for a public hearing. Commissioner Casasanta.
Yeah, I would be inclined to be in favor of public hearing. This is a large project, both retail and residential, that's impacting on the southwest portion a functioning wetland. So because of the nature and the size of the development and possible implications for that wetland, I would like to have a public hearing on this.
Okay. Do any other commissioners wish to respond for voice and opinion?
Commissioner Pasquich, I have a question.
Commissioner Paskowitz, you have the floor.
Are there any residential properties existing around this entire complex perimeter abutting it?
Dennis Goderre, BL Companies. I'm pretty sure basically everything is commercial, industrial. I don't believe there's any residential developments, not even multifamily.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Question for Mr. Hinckley, just a point of order. Would it be possible to have the double public hearing on the 4th? To give the
Yes, you could, and these, just so we're all clear, these would be two separate public hearings. If you choose to have one on the second one, the map amendment would be its own public hearing. And if you choose to have one on this regulated activity, that would be a separate public hearing. And the intention, I think, would be to hold them both on May 4th. Yes.
So
So there
I
are
think
two, yes, I'm sorry.
so. My leaning, obviously, I think the map amendment is going to go pretty smoothly. I think that's not. I don't see any impediments there. I would like to give the public a chance to speak. If there it is, to Mr. Commissioner Casasanta at this point, it is a fairly large project. So that was what I was going to offer to the commission, have that both on the 4th, have a unique meeting just to hold this public hearings and not 2 for 1 and give the public a chance to speak. I offer that to the commission.
And if I may, just real quick, if Paul, if you could slide this, the next motion up to for application 2021-11. I've created two separate motions for whatever you decide.
Commissioner Lavario, you have your hand up.
Yes, I too do think that there needs to be a public hearing regarding the use here. I'm going to vote yes on the May 4th, simply because for convenience that we've already voted on the May 4th for the other issue. But again, I do want to echo my previous sentiment that I do believe that, a couple of weeks here, that's a little less time than is appropriate for the size of this project. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Commissioner Casasanta.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I think that holding dual public hearings on May 4th is an acceptable way to go. I endorse that and will support that.
Thank you. Any other comments from the commission?
Commissioner Pasquich here. I concur with Commissioner Casasanta, and I think it's timeliness on the part of us to accept having both concurrently on that date of May 4th, and not holding up this project this magnitude, which is going to take some time to implement. And I think it'd be a good business segment in the town of Newington. That's all what I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner Paskowitz. Mr. Hinckley, if we have the 2 hearings and it goes smoothly, could we vote on that application on the 4th, or do we have to wait for a regularly scheduled meeting?
I think we can wait till a regularly scheduled meeting, which would be 2 weeks after that on the 18th, I believe, of May.
Okay. So, are there any further comments from the commission? So, I propose the motion in front of us. If the commission believes the proposed activity will have a significant impact to the regulated and or is in the best interest of the public, that they should hold a public hearing for the application 2021-11 and schedule it for May 4th, 2021. I will throw that over to the secretary. You can, for motion.
You need a
Yes.
second?
So that was moved by Commissioner Varier.
Yes, sorry, I was on mute. Yeah.
Do I have a second?
I second that.
Second by Commissioner Casasanta. All in favor? Or we do a roll call again?
I do roll call, that'd be fine.
Commissioner Ancona.
Aye.
Commissioner Bashan,
Yes.
Commissioner Casasanta,
Aye.
Commissioner Leverrier,
Aye.
Commissioner Paskowitz,
Yes.
Chairman Zaydel,
Here. Yes.
Commissioner Wagner.
Yes.
7-0.
It's getting late.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. On behalf of the applicant and the team, we look forward to seeing you on the 4th, and stay safe in the meantime. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
God
you.
bless.
All right, moving on to section 7, old business. Application 2021-01, 285 Willard Avenue for a single-family home within the regulated area. Owner applicant John Wlodkowski, 529 Middle Road, Farmington, Connecticut 06032. Is the applicant still present?
I don't know if they are still here.
I do not see them still in the meeting, Mr. Chairman.
They don't need to be here anyway, right?
No?
No.
Okay, well, first of all, let's open up for any further discussion from the commissioners. Does anybody have any other further comment whatsoever? I see none.
Yeah, Richard, real quick, I promise I
Okay,
won't hold it
Commissioner
up.
Barrier, go ahead.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, I think that with the changes that were proposed or shown in this meeting, I have absolutely no problem with it. I did have hesitation before that it did slightly go into the regulated area, but with the way that it was proposed today, I have no issue with it, and I'm gonna vote yes on that.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Barrier. Anyone else wish to comment?
Commissioner Wagner, I agree with Commissioner Lavier. I have no issues with that
All right,
application.
last call. All right, seeing none. Mr. Hinckley, is the application complete?
It is.
So I believe we have no further conditions. It's basically the standard conditions. So I have,
It's the 10 standard conditions, yes.
all right, I will turn it over to Mr. Secretary Leverrier to read in the motion.
Yes, motion to approve application 2021-01285 Willard Avenue for a single-family home within the regulated area. Owner applicant John Wlodkowski, 529 Mill Road, Farmington, Connecticut 06032, to construct a single-family home, to construct the property as proposed today.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it, John Bashan.
Second by Commissioner Bashan. Final discussion? Ms. Gibbons, please call the roll.
Commissioner Ancona, Commissioner Bashan,
Yes.
Commissioner Casasanta,
Aye.
Commissioner Leverrier,
Aye.
Commissioner Paskowitz,
Yes.
Chairman Saydell,
Yes.
Commissioner Wagner,
Yes.
Commissioner Ancona.
Yes.
Okay, 7-0.
All right, motion passes. All right, thank you. Moving on to section 8, public participation on non-agenda items. Each speaker limited to 2 minutes. James, is there anyone on the line?
We have one individual, if they are interested in speaking, can use the raise hand feature inside of Zoom or the *9 feature on their telephone. Does not appear that they are interested in speaking at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Let's proceed. Section 9, communications and reports. Item A, agent communications. Mr. Hinckley, is there anything to report this month?
Two items. First, the town is doing a reconstruction of bituminous paths at Beacon Park through the highway department. So under general permit 1, there's a lot of regulated areas there. The second thing is I want to introduce you to the town planner, Renata Bertotti. She's been trying to get to us some meetings, and it's just with TPZ and everything and her being new, just hadn't had an opportunity, but she came tonight. She wanted to check up on me, I think. But anyway.
Hi, Renata.
Does Ms. Bertotti wish to speak? Your hand is up.
Let me just figure out how to unmute myself. Well, first of all, good evening. For those of you that don't know my name yet, I'm Renata. I'm a new town planner. I came to work here in the worst time imaginable with regards to introductions, because under normal circumstances, what would have happened is on your meeting in November, I would come in person and introduce myself. And instead, I actually lurked in your meeting, but there is no spot on your agenda where I felt it was okay for me to just jump in. And I did that also one other time. And then I kind of gave up until tonight. So at any rate, this is my face. I work in the planning department with Derek. I particularly wanted to come in tonight because the project at 333 Berlin Turnpike is a large project. It's a significant project, and we are making this attempt to do sort of streamlined processing and the things that we can schedule sooner, we are trying to accommodate that. And the reason for that really is that, we have everything, we have enough time to advertise. We have what we need to do our review at this time for you to open the hearing. If you are not satisfied that you have obtained all the information that you need during the hearing, you can either continue the hearing or table your decision until the later date. But when we see no need to hold people back, we would like to try and do that. And I would ask you to accommodate us in that respect. There is going to be a couple of other items that are coming also, larger projects, some of which involve wetlands, some of which do not involve wetlands. If you are concerned about giving public enough time to learn of these projects, we advertise as much as we can and as much as people want to see us advertise. I also try to plug some stuff through the social media. I am going to tell you, if you want to put on your social media handles something that says, you know what, there is a public hearing, I think it's big. If anybody wants to know, please feel free to do that. Don't discuss anything, obviously. So those are kind of things that I think we can use each other's help on, doing. And I think that's really it. I'm going to be in the room. I'm not here to observe anybody. I'm here mainly if there is a technical question, and in particular with this scheduling thing, 333 Berlin Turnpike will require number of hearings. These things are complicated and very expensive. They were in the room tonight with a couple of the soil scientists, an engineer, a lawyer, all these people that charge a lot of money to do this stuff. So if we can kind of streamline so that we don't impose such a burden on people, we probably should do that. I would appreciate if you would, help me do that. So that's that. And then I'm in my office. Both Eric and I are every day. If anybody wants to email, call, we are there, open for anything, comment, question, input. I appreciate anything you can give me on the history or, history of projects, any kind of environmental stuff you're interested in.
Okay, thank you, Renata. Erica, so that concludes Agent Communications. Did you have anything else to report?
Nope, that's it.
Okay. Moving on to item B, Town Council Liaison and Communications. I did not see Councilor Bedrejko online today. Does she?
They had a council meeting earlier, special meeting.
All right, so I'll move on to item C then, Pond Life Research and Education. Commissioner Paskowitz, do you have anything to report this month?
No, nothing to submit this month. Thank you.
All right. So if there's nothing else, can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn. Richard.
Moved by Commissioner Laurier. Do I have a second?
Anybody?
No, let's just stay here all night.
Please.
Did I get a second?
I second that.
Second by Commissioner Casasanta. Are we going to call the roll here, Ms. Gibbon? I don't think so.
No.
It was really nice meeting you all.
All right. Good night.
You too, Renata.
Pass.
Renata.
Aye, I'm in favor.
Aye.
All right. Well, good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night. See you on the 4th.